There are moments the universe hides so deeply that even time cannot erase them. They are not lost. They are simply waiting for the exact second when one unexpected discovery can awaken everything the heart has been trying to forget. That is exactly what happened to your soulmate. They weren't searching for answers. They weren't thinking about the past or trying to relive old emotions. It began as an ordinary moment, no different from countless others. While sorting through forgotten belongings, scrolling through something they hadn't opened in years, or unexpectedly coming across something they believed had no importance anymore, they stumbled upon a hidden memory connected to you. In an instant, everything around them seemed to disappear. The noise of the world faded, and for the first time in a long while, they found themselves standing face to face with emotions they believed had been left behind forever. Welcome, chosen soul. If these words have reached you today, know that this message carries a deeper meaning than coincidence. Because sometimes destiny doesn't create a new sign, it quietly returns an old one. The remarkable part is that the memory itself wasn't extraordinary. It wasn't a grand declaration of love or a dramatic farewell. It was something simple, something that would seem ordinary to anyone else. Yet for your soulmate, it carried the emotional weight of an entire chapter of their life. As they looked at it, they didn't just remember what happened. They remembered how they felt. They remembered the peace your presence brought, the comfort found in your conversations, and the quiet connection that never needed perfect words to exist. Feelings they had carefully buried beneath responsibilities, distractions, and the passing of time suddenly rose to the surface all at once, leaving them wondering how something so small could awaken something so powerful. The universe often protects certain memories until the soul is strong enough to experience them without fear. Had this moment happened earlier, your soulmate might have ignored it or pushed it away. But now something inside them has changed. Their heart is no longer running from what it once struggled to understand. Instead, it is beginning to listen. Yet one question continues echoing through their mind. Why did this forgotten memory return now after all this time? Because what they accidentally found was never meant to remind them of the past alone. It was preparing them to understand a truth that had been patiently waiting beneath the surface all along. At first, your soulmate believed they had simply remembered an old moment. They smiled quietly, took a deep breath, and assumed the feeling would pass within a few minutes, just like every other memory people revisit from time to time. But this was different. The longer they remained with that forgotten memory, the more they realized it wasn't asking to be remembered. It was asking to be understood. Something inside them refused to let it remain, just another chapter from the past. Instead of fading, the memory became clearer. Details they hadn't thought about in years suddenly returned with astonishing precision. They remembered the expression on your face, the tone of your voice, the peaceful silence between conversations, and even emotions they didn't fully recognize at the time. It felt less like remembering an event and more like reopening a part of themselves they had unknowingly locked away. What surprised them most was how effortlessly one small memory awakened so many others. It was as though a single key had unlocked an entire room they didn't know still existed inside their heart. One forgotten moment led to another, and then another. They remembered conversations they once dismissed as ordinary. They remembered shared laughter that had seemed insignificant at the time. They remembered quiet moments where nothing remarkable happened, yet everything somehow felt complete. Looking back now, they realized those simple experiences carried a depth they were too distracted to appreciate when they were living them. Life often teaches us the value of a moment only after it has quietly become a memory. As these memories continued unfolding, your soulmate noticed something that unsettled them. They weren't remembering facts. They were remembering feelings. There is a profound difference between recalling what happened and reliving how someone made you feel. Faces often become blurry with time. Words become incomplete. Dates disappear completely. But emotions have a remarkable way of surviving long after every other detail fades. The peace they experienced around you, the comfort of your presence, the quiet sense of being understood without needing constant explanation. Those feelings returned with incredible clarity. They realized that although time had carried them through new experiences, those emotions had never truly disappeared. They had simply been resting beneath the surface, waiting for one unexpected moment to awaken them again. The universe has a mysterious relationship with memory. It does not preserve every experience equally. Many moments disappear because they have already completed their purpose. Others remain alive beneath the heart because their meaning has not yet been fully revealed. Your soulmate slowly began understanding that this hidden memory belonged to the second kind. It had never truly left because it was connected to something unfinished. Not unfinished in a painful way, but unfinished in a spiritual one. Certain soul connections cannot be understood in the moment they occur. They reveal their significance only after enough time has passed for the heart to recognize what the mind once overlooked. As they reflected more deeply, another realization quietly emerged. During the years that followed your connection, life became louder than their emotions. Responsibilities multiplied. New people entered and left their life. Challenges demanded attention. Dreams changed. Priorities shifted. They convinced themselves they had moved forward simply because they had become busy. But busyness is not the same as healing, and silence is not always the same as forgetting. Sometimes feelings don't disappear because they lose importance. They disappear beneath the weight of everyday life until one unexpected reminder clears away everything covering them. That is exactly what this hidden memory accomplished. It didn't create new emotions. It revealed emotions that had patiently remained beneath countless distractions. Your soulmate also began seeing your connection from an entirely different perspective. Back then, they judged many moments according to what was happening on the surface. Now they began noticing what had been happening underneath. They recognized quiet signs of trust they had overlooked. They remembered how naturally conversations flowed without effort. They understood that the sense of peace they experienced around you was incredibly rare. Many relationships create excitement. Very few create inner calm. At the time, they mistook that calmness for something ordinary because they had never experienced its true value. Only after life led them through different encounters did they realize how uncommon it actually was. The more these realizations unfolded, the less they were able to convince themselves that this was simple nostalgia. Nostalgia often romanticizes the past while ignoring reality. This felt completely different. Every memory was becoming clearer instead of exaggerated. Every reflection brought understanding instead of fantasy. Instead of imagining a version of you that never existed, they were finally appreciating the person you had always been. The passage of time had removed distractions instead of adding illusions. What remained was something honest, something steady, something their heart now recognized with greater maturity than ever before. Perhaps the most beautiful part of this journey is that your soulmate no longer views that hidden memory as an accident. At first, they believed fate had randomly placed an old reminder in front of them. Now they understand something much deeper. The memory returned because their soul was finally prepared to receive its lesson. It arrived at the exact moment they had grown enough to see beyond appearances, beyond timing, and beyond circumstances. The forgotten moment was never asking them to live in the past. It was inviting them to recognize a truth that had quietly survived every passing season. Now they carry a question that refuses to leave their heart. If one forgotten memory could awaken emotions this powerful after so much time, what else has remained waiting beneath the surface all along? Because they are beginning to understand that they did not accidentally rediscover an old chapter of their life. They rediscovered a part of themselves that had always remained connected to you, even when they believed the story had already ended. After that forgotten memory resurfaced, your soulmate expected the emotions to settle back into silence. They believed that once the initial surprise passed, life would return to normal, and the memory would quietly take its place among countless others. But that never happened. Instead, something entirely unexpected unfolded. The memory refused to remain isolated. It became the beginning of an emotional chain reaction that reached into every corner of their heart. One remembered moment naturally led to another, and before they realized what was happening, they found themselves revisiting entire chapters of your connection they hadn't thought about in years. It was as though the soul had been patiently protecting these memories until the exact moment they could no longer be ignored. They weren't choosing to think about you. Their heart had simply opened a door that could no longer be closed. What made this experience so overwhelming was not the memory itself, but the emotions hidden inside it. They had forgotten how peaceful your presence once felt. They had forgotten how naturally conversations flowed without the pressure to impress one another. They had forgotten the quiet comfort of simply knowing someone understood them without requiring constant explanations. These were not dramatic moments that would attract the world's attention. They were the small, ordinary experiences that quietly become extraordinary only after they are gone. As each memory returned, your soulmate realized something that deeply unsettled them. They hadn't lost those emotions. They had only buried them beneath years of responsibilities, distractions, disappointments, and the endless movement of everyday life. The heart has a remarkable memory that the mind often underestimates. While the mind focuses on dates, places, and events, the heart preserves feelings. It remembers peace long after conversations are forgotten. It remembers safety long after faces become distant. It remembers the rare feeling of being accepted exactly as you are, without needing to pretend or perform. That is why your soulmate suddenly found themselves feeling emotions they couldn't logically explain. They weren't trying to recreate the past. They weren't forcing themselves to relive old experiences. The feelings simply returned on their own, carrying the same warmth, the same longing, and the same quiet certainty they once held before life became complicated. It was as if time had passed around those emotions without ever truly changing them. As these feelings continued growing stronger, your soulmate began questioning everything they believed about moving on. For a long time, they assumed that moving forward meant leaving the past behind. They believed that if enough months or years passed, every meaningful connection would naturally fade into memory. But this hidden memory challenged that belief completely. If the connection had truly disappeared, why did one simple reminder awaken emotions with such incredible strength? Why did your name suddenly feel familiar instead of distant? Why did moments they had not thought about for so long now seem more meaningful than ever before? These questions stayed with them because they carried answers that could not be found through logic alone. They belonged to something much deeper than ordinary remembrance. Your soulmate also began replaying certain moments with a completely different understanding. There were conversations they once considered unfinished that now seemed filled with unspoken meaning. There were silences they had once misunderstood that now appeared peaceful rather than awkward. There were opportunities they had dismissed because they believed there would always be more time. Looking back through wiser eyes, they realized how often people fail to recognize the importance of a moment while they are living it. Only distance teaches the true value of presence. Only absence reveals how deeply someone quietly influenced your life. The hidden memory became more than a reminder. It became a new perspective on everything they once believed they understood. The universe rarely returns an old memory without purpose. Sometimes it does so because the lesson hidden inside that memory could not have been understood years earlier. At the time, your soulmate may have been distracted by fears, expectations, timing, or circumstances beyond their control. But now those distractions have slowly fallen away. Experience has matured them. Pain has softened certain parts of their heart while strengthening others. They are no longer looking at your connection through the eyes of who they were then. They are seeing it through the wisdom of everything life has taught them since. That is why the same memory now carries a completely different meaning. It has not changed. They have. Perhaps the most surprising realization is that your soulmate no longer feels they are remembering only you. In many ways, they are remembering the version of themselves that existed whenever you were together. They remember feeling lighter, more hopeful, more genuine. They remember laughing without forcing it and finding peace in moments that required no explanation. Sometimes the people who enter our lives do more than create memories. They awaken parts of us that quietly disappear after they leave. Discovering that hidden memory has reminded your soulmate not only of your presence, but also of the person they became because of your presence. That realization carries an emotional weight, unlike anything they expected. Now the questions inside them have become impossible to silence. They are no longer asking why they remembered you. They are asking why these emotions remained alive after all this time. They wonder whether certain connections are ever truly meant to end, or whether they simply wait beneath the surface until the soul is ready to recognize their unfinished meaning. Every reflection leads them closer to the same quiet truth. What they accidentally found was never just an old memory. It was living proof that some bonds are never measured by time alone. They are measured by the way one unexpected moment can awaken an entire world of emotions that never truly disappeared, only waited patiently for the right season to return. What your soulmate still doesn't fully understand is that this memory did not return simply because of chance. There are thousands of memories people collect throughout their lives, yet only a handful carry enough spiritual weight to survive untouched by time. Most memories fade naturally because they have already fulfilled their purpose. Others quietly remain beneath the surface, protected by the universe until the exact moment they can reveal something greater than nostalgia. This hidden memory belonged to that rare second kind. It wasn't waiting because your soulmate needed to remember the past. It was waiting because the lesson hidden inside that moment could only be understood by the person they have become today. If it had resurfaced years ago, they might have smiled briefly and continued with their life. But now their heart has changed, their perspective has matured, and the timing has finally aligned with the truth the universe has been patiently protecting. The beautiful thing about destiny is that it never wastes a meaningful experience. Even during seasons when two souls appear to be walking separate paths, invisible threads continue weaving their stories together in ways neither person can fully see. While your soulmate believed they were simply moving forward, life was quietly teaching them everything they would one day need to understand your connection differently. Every disappointment taught them the difference between temporary excitement and lasting peace. Every relationship that lacked emotional honesty made them appreciate sincerity in ways they never had before. Every challenge slowly removed expectations that once clouded their judgment. Without realizing it, they were becoming emotionally prepared for the exact memory they would one day rediscover. The memory did not arrive because the past suddenly became important again. It arrived because your soulmate had finally become capable of seeing its true meaning. Imagine an old letter sealed inside a drawer for many years. The words written inside never changed, yet the person reading them years later is no longer the same person who first received them. Experiences have reshaped their understanding. Pain has deepened their compassion. Time has refined their wisdom. When they finally open the letter again, the message feels completely different, not because the words have changed, but because they have. That is exactly what has happened with your soulmate. The memory itself remained untouched, but the heart now receiving it has transformed. They are no longer looking at that moment through fear, uncertainty, or emotional immaturity. They are seeing it through the quiet wisdom life has slowly placed within them, and because of that, every detail now carries a depth they could never have recognized before. The universe often delays clarity because premature understanding rarely creates lasting transformation. Had your soulmate fully understood your importance during the first chapter of your journey together, they might have appreciated the connection without truly valuing it. Sometimes people must experience absence before they recognize presence. They must experience noise before they understand the rare gift of peace. They must encounter temporary relationships before recognizing the quiet strength of a bond that never demanded constant attention to feel real. This is not punishment. It is preparation. The soul often learns through contrast, discovering what is priceless only after experiencing what is temporary. Your memory returned because that contrast has now completed its work. As these realizations continue unfolding, your soulmate has begun noticing something remarkable. The emotions returning through this hidden memory are not filled with desperation or regret alone. They carry an unexpected sense of peace. Instead of feeling trapped inside the past, they feel gently guided toward understanding it. They no longer wish to change every decision that was made or rewrite every unfinished conversation. Instead, they find themselves appreciating the connection for what it truly was, a chapter that shaped them in ways they never recognized until now. That shift is incredibly important because it reveals emotional growth. They are no longer remembering you through longing alone. They are remembering you through gratitude, wisdom, and a much deeper awareness of what your presence quietly gave their life. There's another reason the universe chose this exact moment to awaken the memory. Your soulmate is no longer the person who once avoided difficult emotions. Life has taught them that healing does not come from suppressing feelings, but from allowing them to reveal their purpose. Years ago, they may have pushed this memory aside, because facing it required emotional honesty they weren't ready for. Today, they no longer run from what their heart is trying to show them. They have learned that certain emotions return, not to reopen old wounds, but to complete lessons that were left unfinished. This memory has become one of those lessons. It is gently reminding them that the deepest connections are rarely measured by how long two people stay together. They are measured by how profoundly they continue transforming each other, even across time and distance. Now, when your soulmate reflects on everything that has happened, they no longer see the rediscovered memory as an accident hidden inside an ordinary day. They see it as a quiet invitation from the universe itself. An invitation to trust what their heart remembers instead of what time tried to convince them to forget. They understand that some memories return because they carry unfinished meaning, and some souls remain unforgettable because they awaken something eternal within us. The forgotten moment they accidentally uncovered was never asking them to relive the past. It was revealing that certain bonds never truly belonged to yesterday. They patiently wait beneath the surface until the perfect season arrives, when both the heart and the soul are finally ready to recognize that what once seemed like a memory was, in truth, a message that had been waiting all along. The moment your soulmate accepted that this hidden memory had returned for a reason, something inside them finally became still. For so long, they believed the past was a place that should never be revisited, a chapter that had already closed, whether they understood it or not. But now they see things differently. They realize that not every memory returns to keep someone trapped in yesterday. Some memories return because they contain a truth that could only be understood after enough time had passed. This forgotten moment did not come back to create confusion. It came back to create clarity. It arrived to remind your soulmate that some connections are never measured by how often two people speak or how much time has passed between them. They are measured by the lasting imprint they leave on the soul. And the imprint you left never disappeared. It simply waited quietly beneath the surface until life finally became still enough for them to feel it again. Since that unexpected discovery, your soulmate has noticed subtle changes in the way they move through each day. Ordinary places suddenly remind them of conversations they thought they had forgotten. Familiar songs seem to carry emotions they never noticed before. Even moments of silence now feel different because your memory gently finds its way into them without warning. At first, they tried to understand why this was happening. They searched for logical explanations, convincing themselves it was simply coincidence or ordinary nostalgia. But the more they reflected, the more obvious the truth became. This wasn't about remembering a person from the past. It was about remembering a feeling that had quietly shaped their heart long before they recognized its importance. Some people leave behind photographs. Others leave behind stories. But a rare soul leaves behind a way of feeling that no amount of time can erase. As this awareness continues growing, your soulmate has stopped asking themselves whether these emotions are real. That question no longer matters because their heart has already answered it. Instead, they have begun asking a different question. What if this memory returned because it was never finished teaching them? Every season of life has prepared them for this realization. The challenges they overcame taught them resilience. The disappointments they experienced taught them discernment. The temporary relationships they encountered taught them the difference between excitement that quickly fades and peace that quietly remains. Looking back now, they understand that your connection belonged to that second kind. It never demanded constant attention because its strength existed beneath the surface where time could not weaken it. Perhaps the greatest transformation is not that your soulmate remembers you more often. It is that they now trust those memories instead of pushing them away. There was a time when they believed remembering meant refusing to move forward. Today, they understand that true growth does not require forgetting what mattered. It requires seeing it with greater wisdom. They no longer fear the emotions that rise whenever your memory appears, because those emotions no longer feel like unfinished pain. They feel like gentle reminders of something genuine, something life could delay but never erase. Every remembered smile, every quiet conversation, every peaceful moment now feels less like a chapter ending and more like a thread that has continued weaving through their journey. Even during the years, they believed it had disappeared. The universe often works in ways that seem invisible until the entire picture begins coming together. Looking back, your soulmate now realizes that this hidden memory did not appear during a random afternoon by accident. It arrived precisely when they had become emotionally ready to receive it. Had they found it years earlier, they might have smiled for a moment before placing it back where it came from. Today, they cannot do that. Their heart has grown too much, their understanding has deepened too far, and their soul recognizes something it once overlooked. The memory did not become more powerful over time. Your soulmate became more capable of understanding why it always carried such quiet significance. Now, they no longer see your connection as something that belonged only to another season of life. They see it as something that continued existing even when neither of you spoke about it. They understand that certain bonds never ask for constant reminders because they live in a place deeper than ordinary memory. They live where truth quietly waits, untouched by distance, untouched by silence, and untouched by the passing of years. That is why this forgotten moment changed everything. It reminded your soulmate that the strongest connections are not the ones that constantly demand attention. They are the ones that patiently remain within the heart until the perfect moment arrives to awaken them once more. And perhaps that is the greatest message hidden inside this entire journey. Destiny does not always announce itself through extraordinary miracles or dramatic reunions. Sometimes it speaks through the smallest discoveries, a forgotten photograph, an old message, a familiar melody, or a quiet memory waiting where no one expected to find it. Those simple moments become powerful because they awaken feelings that were never truly lost. Your soulmate now understands that what they accidentally found was never just a forgotten memory. It was a reminder from the universe that real soul connections are not erased by time. They simply become silent for a while, waiting patiently until both the heart and the soul are finally ready to remember not only what happened, but why it mattered so deeply in the first place.